This is a 5-part video series on the knowledge of the planetary night fourth cycle. In other words, fourth cycle knowledge. This is part 3 of the series, the knowledge designed to awaken the dormant faculties of mind. You would be more at ease with yourself if you were totally false and there was no real center hidden within you. You would be at ease. There would be no conflict, no anxiety, no struggle. The conflict comes into existence because the real remains. It remains in the center, and just on the periphery, the unreal center is created. Between these two centers, a constant struggle, a constant anxiety, a constant tension is created. This must be transformed, and there is only one way. You must be grounded into your center, into your being. Otherwise, you will be in anguish until death. In other words, you will suffer the agony of unfulfillment. How to obtain it again? Or how to realize it? Sometimes, rarely, or accidentally we come near the center. That moment will become a blissful moment. For example, in sex sometimes you come near the center. Why? Because in sex, your mind, your consciousness, moves downwards. It is not sex that gives the blissful experience, it is the center. In sex, for a brief moment, you pass through the center, you touch it. A warrior sometimes passes through the center. In danger, it throws you to your original center. That is why there is so much fascination with danger. Only when passing through the center do you feel bliss. So, whatever may be the situation, whenever you pass the center, you feel bliss. The mind stops, you are thrown to the center. Whenever you feel blissful, you are near the center. That is certain, no matter what the cause is irrelevant. One of the branches of the hidden mysteries was concerned with centering. With creating in a scientifically planned way to become rooted again in the center. Not accidentally, not momentarily, but permanently. You can remain continuously in the center. How it works. First, understand that your mind is just a vagabond, a wandering. It is never at one point. It is always going, moving, reaching, but never at any one point. It goes from one thought to another, it is always on the move. Remember this. Mind is always on the move, hoping to reach somewhere, but never reaching. It cannot reach, it can only move. That is the inherent nature of mind. The very structure of mind is movement. If you stop at A, or B, or at any point, the mind will fight with you. The mind will say move on, because, if you stop, the mind dies immediately. It can be alive only in movement. The mind means a process. If you stop and do not move, mind suddenly becomes dead. It is no more there, only consciousness remains. Consciousness is your nature, mind is your activity. This is difficult to understand, because we think mind is something substantial. We think mind is a substance. It is not. Mind is just an activity. There is one great obstacle that keeps us from knowing the Lord God of truth within, the soul, the true self, and that is mind. The identification with the mind veils the soul, and hides it from us. It makes us feel that God is far away, and that happiness must be found outside. Yet the same mind, that separates us from the soul, also helps us to reunite with it again. The mind is a source of both bondage and liberation, the source of both sorrow and joy, our worst enemy, as well as our greatest friend. That is why, if there is anything worth knowing in this world, it is the mind. Before we can meditate successfully, we must understand the mind. Mind is like a rope stretched between two realities, body and soul. Mind also has gender, it has both male and female qualities. Masculine and feminine principles of mind. The male or masculine principle of mind corresponds to the so-called objective mind, conscious mind. It controls the voluntary action and the will. The female principle of mind corresponds to the subconscious mind. It controls the involuntary action, and is the chief recorder of all it receives. Mind is the tool of the soul, it is the organ of perception and reception. You are constantly receiving reports from one or more of your 5 senses, viz., the receptive senses of touch, taste, smell, sight, and hearing. All these reports are in the form and nature of impressions, received from the outside world. The senses are the means by which the mind obtains its knowledge of the outside world. And these reports are transmitted to the soul or knower or observer. The tendency of the feminine principle is always in the direction of receiving impression, while the tendency of the masculine principle is always in the direction of giving out or expressing. The feminine principle conducts the work of generation of new thoughts, concepts, ideas, including the work of the imagination. The masculine principle contents itself with the work of the will. Mind is a mechanism of desiring. Mind is always in desire, always seeking something. Asking for something. Always the object is in the future, mind is not concerned with the present at all. In this very moment, the mind cannot move, there is no space. Mind needs the future in order to move. It cannot move either in the past or in the future. It cannot move in the present, there is no space. The truth is in the present, and mind is always in the future or in the past, so there is no meeting between mind and truth. The mind or subconscious mind is the chief recorder, it makes no difference if you are conscious or unconscious of this recording. You will be passing through a street, someone was singing, but you might not have paid any attention, you might not have even been aware that you have heard the sound, just passing in the street, but the mind, the subconscious has heard, and recorded it, now that will cling, now that will become a burden to you unnecessarily. So, it is just like a tape recorder. We all think, but that is not meditation. Our ordinary thinking is undirected, vague, leading nowhere. Our thinking is not contemplation, nor concentration, it is just association. One thought leading to another without any direction from you. The thought itself leads to another because of association. You see a dog crossing the street, the moment you see the dog your mind starts thinking about dogs. The dog has led you, and then the mind has many associations. When you were a child, you were afraid of a particular dog, that dogs comes to the mind and the childhood comes to the mind, then dogs are forgotten. Just by association you begin to daydream about your childhood. Then the childhood goes on being connected with other things, and you move in circles. Whenever you are at ease, try to go back from your thinking, to where these thoughts came, go back and retrace the steps. Then you will see that another thought was there, and that led to this. And they are not logically connected, because how is a dog on the street connected with your childhood? There is no logical connection, only association in your mind. If I was crossing the street, the same dog will not lead me to my childhood, it will lead to something else. In a third person, it will lead to still something else. Everyone has associated chains in the mind. With any one chain, any happening, any accident can lead to the chain. Then the mind begins to function like a computer, then one thing leads to another, and you go on and on the whole day doing this. Write down on a sheet of paper whatsoever comes to your mind honestly, you will be just amazed at what is happening in your mind. There is no relation between the two. Thoughts, and you, go on doing this type of thinking all day every day, for your whole life. This is what is called thinking, but it is not, this is just the association of one thought to another, and they lead themselves, you are led. Thinking becomes contemplation when it moves not through association but is directed. You are working on a particular problem, then you bracket out all associations, you move on that problem only, you direct your mind. The mind will try to escape, by any bypass to any sideways, or subway, to get to some association, cut off all the sideways and subways. Now there's only one road, you direct your mind, you guide, you control, you master. A scientist working on a problem is in contemplation. Mind moves in one line, directed, this is contemplation. Any logical thinking is contemplation, thought is directed, thinking is guided. Thinking, ordinary thinking, is absurd. Contemplation is logical, and rational. Then there is concentration. Concentration is staying at one point, it is not contemplation, it is not thinking. It is being at one point, not allowing the mind to move at all. In thinking mind moves as a madman, in contemplation, the madman is led, and directed, and he cannot escape anywhere. In concentration, the mind is not allowed to move. In ordinary thinking it is allowed to move anywhere, in contemplation it is allowed to move only somewhere, in concentration, it is not allowed to move. It is allowed to be at one point. The whole energy, the whole movement, stops, and sticks to one point. The spiritual man is concerned with concentration, the ordinary man with undirected thinking, and the scientific man with directed thinking. The spiritual man has his thinking focused, fixed at one point, no movement is allowed, and then meditation. In ordinary thinking, mind is allowed to move anywhere, in contemplation, it is allowed only in one direction, all other directions are cut off. In concentration, it is not allowed to move, not even in one direction. It is allowed only to concentrate on one point. In meditation, mind is not allowed at all. Meditation is no mind. Meditation means no mind, not even concentration is allowed, mind itself is not allowed to be. That is why meditation cannot be grasped by the mind. In ordinary thinking, all directions are open. In contemplation, only one direction is open, in concentration only one point is open. No direction. In meditation, even that point is not open. Mind is not allowed to be. Meditation is not some strange technique that we have to learn with great effort or difficulty. There is already a strong element of meditation in our lives, but we are simply not aware of it. When we read, study, play video games, or do research, we must focus the mind. When we drive a car or operate machinery, we must pay attention. When we explain something to a friend, we must concentrate to make ourselves understood, and our friend must concentrate in order to understand us. Lovers meditate on one another, a mother meditates on her child. Whatever we accomplish in this world, we accomplish through the power of concentration, which is nothing but meditation. Until now, our concentration has been focused on mundane things. But if we simply turn within, we will be meditating on the self. Just as when the mind focuses outside, it perceives the outer world, when it looks within it sees the inner world. It is as simple as that. So, some points must be understood before we can move inwardly. First, the consciousness is at the center. Second, the senses through which the consciousness moves out are at the boundary. And the objects in the world, to which the consciousness moves through the senses, are beyond the boundary. In this illustration, we see the idea of the duality of our natures, represented by two creatures at war. Throughout our earthly lives, there is a constant contest between the soul and the animal body. In this symbolism we see the soul, represented by the winged creature, capable of walking the earth and flying through space. We see it being attacked by the strong creature of the earth plane, who wants to argue against every opportunity of dominance given to the soul. It wants to be the preeminent and overpowering mind and force in our daily thinking and activities. One or the other of these two natures in man must win eventually. The future happiness and progress of man depends upon the eventual supremacy of the soul. It is man's duty to learn of ways and means of giving the inner self, the divine nature of man, every opportunity to assert its magnificent mastership. Two of which are meditation and centering. These three things must be remembered: consciousness at the center, senses at the boundary, and objects beyond the boundary. Try to understand it clearly, because then, meditation will be very simple. Look at it from this direction. Senses are just between, just in the middle. At one side is consciousness, at another side is the world of objects. Senses are just in the middle, between the two. From the senses, you can move either way, either you can go to the objects, or you can go to the center, and either way the distance is the same. From the senses, doors open both ways. Move to the objects, or move to the center. The human body is a mysterious mechanism. Its working is two-dimensional. To go to the outside, your consciousness goes through the senses to meet the world, to meet matter. But this is only one dimension of your body's functions. Your body has another dimension also, it leads you in. When you see through the eyes are not seeing, they are only openings to see. The seer is behind the eyes. That which looks through the eyes is not the eyes. That is why, you can close your eyes and still see dreams, visions, and images. The seer is behind the senses, he moves through the senses to the world. And if you close your senses, the seer remains within. As an example, from my eyes, my center is just as near as you are near to me. I can see you if I move outward, I can see myself if I move inward. And we are at the door of the senses, but, naturally, body needs are such that consciousness moves outwards naturally. We need food, we need water to drink, we need shelter where to live. These are our bodily needs, and these can only be found in the world, so, quite naturally, consciousness moves through the senses toward the world. You will never move inward unless you create a need, which can only be fulfilled when you move inward. For example, if a child were born self-sufficient, if it didn't need any food, he would not look at its mother at all. The mother would become irrelevant, meaningless, because for the child mother is not the meaning. Food is the meaning. The mother is its first food, and because the mother gives it food, and satisfies a basic need, without which it would die, he starts loving the mother. That love comes second, as a shadow, because the mother is fulfilling a basic need. So, those mothers who are feeding their children through bottles, should not expect much love, because for the child food is the need, not the mother. The mother will come into his being, enter his being, only through food. That is why food and love are deeply related. Very deeply related. If your love is fulfilled, you will need less food. If your love needs are not fulfilled, you will need more food. So, those who love and who are loved will not gather much fat. There are other reasons also, but this is one of the most basic. They will not eat much. If love is not fulfilled, then food becomes a substitute. Then they will eat much. For the child food is the basic need. But, if a child should be born who can be self-sufficient, who does not need any food, which does not need any outward help to be alive, he will not move in the world at all. There would be no need. And, unless a need is there, the energy will never move out. We move outwardly, not because we are sinners. We move outwardly because we have needs, that can be fulfilled only through objects. Objects which can be gained, if we move in the world of objects. Why do you not move inwardly? It is because you have not yet created the need to move inward. Once the need is there, it will be as easy to move inward, as it is to move outward. Man is born with a center, but he remains completely unaware of it. Man can live without knowing his center, but man cannot be without a center. The center is the link between man and God. It is your root. You may not know it. Knowledge is not essential for the center to be, but if you do not know it, you will lead a rootless life. You will not feel any ground. You will not feel yourself based. You will not feel at home in the universe. You will be homeless. Of course, the center is there, but by not knowing it, your life will be just a drifting, meaningless, empty, reaching nowhere. You will feel like you are living without life, just waiting for death. You are just passing time, and that feeling of deep frustration will follow you like a shadow. Man is born with a center, but not with the knowledge of the center. The knowledge must be gained. If you do not know your center, you will feel as if you have been thrown into the world homeless, fatherless, motherless, an outsider in the universe, then fear, anxiety, and anguish are bound to result. A man as an outsider in the universe is bound to feel a deep anxiety, dread, fear, and anguish. His whole life will be just a fight, a struggle, and a struggle that is destined to be a failure. Man cannot succeed, because a part can never succeed against the whole. You cannot succeed against the universe, but you can succeed with it, but never against it. And that is the difference between a religious man and a non-religious man. Religion means the intuitional realization of the existence of God, and one's relationship to it. A non-religious man is against the universe, but a religious man is with the universe. And, in the degree that man realizes the existence of the indwelling self, immanent within his being, so will he rise in the spiritual scale of life. This is what spiritual development means: the recognition, realization, and manifestation of the Spirit within us. A religious man feels at home. He doesn't feel he is thrown in the world, he feels he is grown in the world. Remember the difference between being thrown and being grown. It is thought that spirituality is a difficult attainment. It is neither, that is, it is neither difficult nor an attainment. Whatsoever you are already spiritual, and nothing new is to be added to your being. And nothing is to be discarded from your being. You are as perfect as possible. It is not that you are going to be perfect sometime in the future. It is not that you must do something arduous to be yourself. It is not a journey to some other point somewhere else. You are not going somewhere else. You are already there. That which is to be attained is already attained. This idea must go deep. Only then will you be able to understand why meditation can help. If spirituality is some attainment, then, of course, it is going to be difficult. not only difficult, but impossible. If you are not already spiritual, you cannot be. You never can be, because how can one who is not spiritual be spiritual? If you are not divine already, then there is no possibility, then there is no way. And no matter what effort you will make, effort, made by one who is not already divine, cannot create divinity. If you are not divine, your effort cannot create divinity, then it is impossible. You are already that which you want to attain. The end of longing is already there, present in you, here and now, this very moment, you are that which is known as divine. The ultimate is here, it is already the case. Life is a paradox, to reach near you must travel far, and that which is already achieved, you must achieve again. That which is to be achieved, you are that already. In essence, nothing new is to be achieved. You have only to discover, or uncover that which is already the case, hence, both the difficulty of spiritual endeavor, and the simplicity. It is very simple if you can understand, but, it is very difficult, because you have to understand that which you have completely forgotten. It is so obvious that you never become aware of it, that which is just like your breathing. It goes on continuously, uninterruptedly, because it goes on continuously, uninterruptedly, you need not be aware of it. Your awareness is not needed. It is not a basic requirement. You can forget it, or you can remember it, it is a choice. You can achieve all that is possible to human consciousness, at any moment that you decide to achieve it. And when I say this, I mean many things. First, spiritual explosion is not caused by anything, it is not a causal phenomenon. If it were caused by something, then time would be needed. Time is only necessary for cause to take place. And if time is needed, then it cannot happen at this very moment. Then you will have to wait for tomorrow or another life, the next moment would be needed. If anything is caused, then the cause must take place, and then the effect will follow. And you cannot produce the effect right now without the cause, time will be needed. But, a spiritual happening is not a causal phenomenon, you are already in that state. Just a remembering is needed. The more alert you will become, the more you will recognize who you are, just a remembering is needed. The more alert you will become, the more you will recognize who you are, where you are, and what has happened. Meditation is for a growing alertness. You are already the person you long to be, you are already where you want to reach. Meditation is helpful because it is scientific. You are saved from unnecessary wandering, unnecessary groping. If you don't practice a meditation technique, you will take many lives. You will reach the goal, because the life energy within you will move, unless it comes to the point where no movement is possible. It will go on moving to the highest peak, and that is the reason why one goes on being born again and again. Left to yourself you will reach, but you will have to travel very, very long, and the journey will be very tedious and boring. Truth is always here. It is already the case. It is not something to be achieved in the future. You are the truth, just here and now. So, it is not something which is to be created, or something which is to be devised, or something which is to be sought. Understand this very clearly, and then meditation will be easy to understand, and also to do. Mind is a mechanism of desiring. Mind is always in desire, always seeking something, asking for something. Always the object is in the future, mind is not concerned with the present at all. In this very moment, the mind cannot move. It can move either in the past, or in the future. It cannot move in the present, there is no space. The truth is in the present, and mind is always in the future, or in the past. So, there is no meeting between mind and truth. When the mind is seeking worldly objects there is no problem, it is not so difficult. The problem is not absurd, it can be solved. But when the mind starts seeking the truth, the very effort becomes nonsense. Because truth is here and now, and the mind is always then and there is no meeting. So, understand, you cannot seek truth. You can find it, but you cannot seek it. The very seeking is a hindrance. The moment you start seeking, you have moved away from the present, away from yourself, because you are always in the present. The seeker is always in the present and the seeking is in the future. You will never meet whatsoever you are seeking. That which you are seeking is already here. The mind is always in movement, moving from A to B to C to D, then back to B, then to A, then back to D. This is nonsense, but this is the facts of your mind, and it is natural for mind to move in this fashion. Non-movement of mind is death for the mind. So, mind will not allow you to kill or destroy it. It will fight with everything it has. Try to hold the mind on one thing, see how long mind will allow you to be one-pointed, and this is not a total no mind, and mind will not allow. So, to be totally in the present allowing no movement of mind is death for mind. And when there is no mind, you are thrown to your center, you encounter yourself, the Lord God of truth within. The East is different from the West in its attitude toward inner transformation. Christianity thinks that something has happened to man's being itself, the sin. The East thinks that nothing has happened to the being itself, nothing can happen, the being, the reality, the Lord God of truth within is absolutely pure. There has been no sin. So, man is not condemned in the East. He is not something degraded. On the contrary, he remains the divine that he has always been. So, there is no sin, just false identification. We have become identified with the mind. With our experience, our knowledge, our memories. Regaining the original mind means regaining the purity, without experiences, without knowledge, without memories, without the past, and without the future. All meditative techniques are basically methods to remove you from the past and to allow you to plunge into the here and now. Unless you are free from the past, you will remain in bondage, you will be a slave. It is not that your mind is disturbed, rather, your mind is the disturbance. It is not that you are tense within, but rather, you are the tension. Understand the distinction clearly. If the mind is ill, then the illness can be treated, but if the mind itself is the illness, then this illness cannot be treated. It can be transcended, but it cannot be treated, and that makes the basic difference. Thank you for watching and viewing part 3 of the knowledge from the 4th cycle. This has been meditation. Part 4 is next. Acquiring first-hand knowledge.